Hey everybody, welcome back to the Open Source Office. This is Tex once again. Today I'm joined by Ahmed and Haded, and we're going to be taking a look at a project from Emergo. How you guys doing?
Doing good, doing good. How are you, Terrence?
Doing all right.
Very well. Would each of you like to give a brief intro?
Yep, sure thing. So I'm Ahmed. Don't confuse me with the other Ahmed. But I run Emergo Labs. Emergo Labs is a multi-chain dev shop and venture studio. And it was a brainchild of our investment activities about two and a half years ago when we started seeing specific gaps in the market. And nobody was filling these gaps, so we thought, let's just build stuff and fill those gaps, and that's how the labs was born. I got over to you.
Yeah, I'm the other Ahmed, but just call me Hadid, just not to confuse the audience. I'm a technical product and program manager at Emergo, and kind of the brain behind this treasury application, along with our team who have seen a lot of things within the Cardano ecosystem, and we thought, hey, why not just do something about that? So really glad that you took the time to talk to us, and looking forward to explaining everything to you and the audience. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both, and we'll let everyone in. We're here to take a closer look at FusionFi today, and so whoever wants to start, if you'll give us a little bit of an in-depth to what is FusionFi, and maybe we can also answer how does this contribute to growth and functionality within the Cardano ecosystem, and is there a specific problem that this is a solution for?
I don't know. Do you want to take it or I take it? Yeah.
So no, you go for it. I'll supplement.
No worries. So, I mean, we're talking about the FusionFi core, just to be precise. So the kind of like the idea came from that Cardano currently lacks kind of a standardized modular infrastructure for building real-world DeFi applications. So we've worked a lot with SME borrow and lending, small communities, that want to tap into the crypto liquidity, and they don't have kind of like the proper tools to deploy something for a small scale or a big scale, as for example commodity financing, pre-production financing, or for example trade financing. But you can take it to multiple levels. So we thought that such lending protocols, stablecoin integration, fiat gateways, developers are kind of forced to either build from scratch or with no reusable smart contracts, SDKs, or even governance models that are available within the ecosystem. So the best thing that you can do is actually just fork something that already exists. We've been through that route. We know exactly the pain points when it comes to forking something, for example, like Aave, or within the Cardano ecosystem as well. So we saw that there is a kind of a need for some sort of a unified toolkit that provides the foundation, let's say the foundational backend for DeFi and real-world assets use cases when it comes to lending and borrowing, and also that can particularly align with the priorities that the Cardano commercial roadmap, which includes stablecoin adoption, institutional grade DeFi, bridges between Web3 and traditional finances. And this gap is especially urgent in regions, especially primarily in Africa and Middle East, and of course some other frontier markets, where I think Cardano has already committed to driving the economic inclusion, right? So builders and users in these markets need an accessible infrastructure for fiat-backed lending. As an example, shared asset management, which is super hard right now to do within the Cardano ecosystem because we don't have any multi-sig wallet that actually works properly. Shout out to Brokeland, which we'll probably be working with, but that's the only usable multi-sig wallet at the moment. But still, it's a long way from being kind of institutional grade. And yeah, so all of which kind of remain difficult to implement without this open source reusable model. So yeah, this is it. This is it.
And just to add to that, what Haddad shared, Tex, um, um, this being one of the primary things we thought of when building Fusion 5 Core, but in addition, we saw it as a really great opportunity to be able to pull additional liquidity from other chains into Cardano, which is something that's been missing since day zero of Cardano. Just today, we saw that Coinbase wrapped ADA, right, in order to be able to trade it on Base. So um, things like that happening outside of the Cardano ecosystem to bring liquidity into the Cardano ecosystem is great, but it's kind of an oxymoron because we should do things from within the Cardano ecosystem ourselves, right? Not only will it increase liquidity into Cardano, but hopefully drive the price of ADA up a little bit, create more you know, I think Charles posted something about a milestone of 2,000 projects on Cardano. Great, but it's not about the numbers. It's about, are these projects actually bringing liquidity? Are they bringing additional people into Cardano from other chains? So the real premise of Fusion 5 Core is to create a holistic development on Cardano, from liquidity to developer toolkits to institutionalized or institutional grade compliance in order to attract all this funding we're seeing that's starting to pour into Web3 from TradFi. Lending isn't a frontier tech or frontier market thing only, right? It's something that's very, very much needed, even more so in developed markets where people who are sitting on stockpiles of crypto, they don't want to liquidate that, right? They want to be able to use that as collateral and to access additional pools of capital. And this is the foundation for disruption in private equity, disruption in asset mining, disruption in lending, disruption in investing. So it's a great way to start for us to be able to go into all of these different archaic industries that were already in conversations and to sort of help disrupt using some of these developer toolkits.
Sure. But it definitely sounds like there's a lot of thought that's gone into this. And if we take this technical even for just a brief moment, we'll look at, what are some of the core components or dependencies for Fusion Phi? Are we relying on smart contracts in any way, compliance with metadata standards? And what are some other data reliability metrics here as well, as far as integrity and security, and whether or not this is built primarily on-chain? Are there off-chain features? I know that's a lot, but maybe we can kind of dive into those a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, most of it is on chain. So we want to create some sort of a standardized lending protocol using Aiken. So to accelerate the protocol development, they need to be, one of the core pillars that we want to enforce when developing these smart contracts is they need to be as modular as possible, so you can change all the parameters as needed, which is easier than just forking something, as I said, like Aave or any put-on lending platform. The other part would be a USDA integration wrapper to support kind of the stablecoin adoption across all the apps. But it's not going to be we want to start with USDA, honestly, because we know that we develop it along with Anzen. So it's kind of like the easy entryway. But the wrapper also can include IUSD or any future stablecoin that you want to support. The most important one would be the multi-sig controller module to kind of power the community, savings, cooperative, DAOs in the future, etc., which is something that is like missing within the Cardano ecosystem. And also the off-ramping and on-ramping rails, hopefully with Encryptus, which is our partner. And that's the only kind of off-chain module that we will be building. So think of it as multiple modules, from smart contracts to multi-sig controller to the USDA, or let's say the stablecoin wrapper. Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll continue down that dependency track here just a little bit. Are there any current projects within the Cardano ecosystem that you all rely upon, or anything that you're contributing to specifically to help propel FusionFi?
So the only thing right now is USDA, as I said. So the wrapper, we obviously like the minting, burning, the easy transfer of the token itself will absolutely rely on Anzin's integration. But of course, we're working very closely with Anzin's. As I said, we were very much engaged with the launch of USDA, so we know all the ins and outs of the token itself and the minting and burning mechanism. So that's kind of like the only dependency that we have at the moment. On the off-chain part, also with Encryptus, when it comes to the off-ramping and on-ramping of stable coins or ADA itself, that remains as another dependency. But as I said, the model itself can support multiple off-ramp and on-ramp partners. You can plug and play as you wish. If you don't want to work with Encryptus, you can work with any other on-ramp, off-ramp partner that you that suits your needs. Yeah.
And
And
also,
go ahead.
doing partnerships with some other RWA platforms on Cardano, the likes of Sundial and others.
Okay. It's starting to sound like this is really for everybody, but as we're still, I guess, in some phases of development and reaching final productization, things like that, who would be your target primary users, at least as of right now?
I think let's say we want to kind of empower builder within the whole Cardano ecosystem. So it can be sustainability DAO that does not want to fork liquid. So instead they use the FusionFi core to loan USDA against carbon credits, as an example. And you can see, like, for example, this is a very custom integration that would need a lot of work. But when using FusionFi core, you can borrow and lend against assets, against RWA assets, which has not been done so far. So we're talking about really any sort of lending and borrowing platform, from SME, small SME lending and borrowing, to sustainability DAOs, to small communities within the Cardano ecosystem. So I think Ahmed can take this as well.
Yeah, I would say we have to think of it as a phased approach, right? So early adopters, day 0 to 10, would be institutions, right? The idea would be to create sort of a closed environment to enable specific institutions that we have a long-standing relationship with to try it out, test it, make sure it works. We make the required amendments, alterations, get regulated where we need to get regulated, and so on and so forth. And once we have that sheer volume and sheer adoption, and once we feel like we've tweaked it in ways that we needed to, that's when we start potentially opening it up for additional sort of groups, from DAOs to individuals to you name it, that can trade or use the solution from a B2C perspective, right? But I think initially, as a core foundation, what's really critical is getting the developer community on board, right? We have quite a bit of interest from the developer community, but I think once we actually launch, then it would be much easier to share, with the developer community, so they can take a stab at it and see what they can build, how they can build it, how fast they can build it, and how much it makes their lives significantly easier to enable these institutions and these different stakeholders to come in and use the core infrastructure. And the idea is, the reason why we've created this into a core infrastructure is because we think Cardano needs more than one lending platform. It needs as many as possible, and the more platforms built on top of FusionFi core, the better it is for the overall Cardano sort of ecosystem, in terms of liquidity, in terms of bridging to other chains, in terms of bringing in new blood that hasn't, decided to cross the bridge because they don't see any value in crossing the bridge. But now with the launch of USDA and other stablecoins on Cardano, and with projects like FusionFi Core and Sundial and others, we're hoping that some people from outside of the Cardano ecosystem will decide to take a leap of faith and join us.
Right. So I heard you all mention a little bit more of a developer focus, or trying to reach out to developers, make sure that we're in a good space. Are there any success stories to date as far as the development's gone? What can you tell us that way?
So yes and no. Yes, in terms of the fact that we've built the basic infrastructure on Cardano, and that we're self-funding this, and we're very, very early days. So I guess this is why we're here today, right? So we can unlock some additional funding to be able to get this to at least POC. So we can bring the developer community in and have them test something. But yeah, no success stories to date yet with respect to FusionFi. We've had success stories with other products we've built, but not FusionFi quite yet.
All right. So to round this out then, and really share the best information we can, what does a roadmap look like, right? So development roadmap from here forward. Obviously, I did hear you mention, we need some funding at different stages, but what are we really looking at in, let's say, 6, 12, 18 months?
So mostly the ACAN contracts are done. The only thing that we really need to focus on is the USDA wrapper, because, as you know, USDA just launched, and you can go to Onsens and start minting and burning. Just to keep everything aligned, we could not, start kind of using the code base to develop the wrapper itself. So now would be the time. And also with the, as I said, with the multi-sig wallet. So the contracts for the tokenization, and by the way, this might be a success story, not sure, but some of our partners are already starting to look at these contracts to, for example, lend against warehouse receipts as an example, or any RWA asset. And, it's kind of a scaffold that is out of the box, ready to use. So, we're starting to use those ACAN smart contracts for the lending and borrowing piece. And yeah, as I said, so we need to focus on USDA wrapper and the multi-sig model. That's what we're looking to start working on as soon as possible.
All right. Good stuff. Anything else to add here for the community at this point? So I think there is something that is, let's say, FusionFi Core is not a financial. It's not a DeFi product. It's a financing infrastructure. So you can use this model to build credit system, resource vaults, or milestone triggered disbursement platforms. So think of it as a plug-and play where you can use, for example, RWA's real-world assets as collateral for loans. So depending on use case, say like a nonprofit with USDA and Treasury uses the multi-sig wallet as an example to manage the grant disbursements. You can say an NGO uses USDA stipends with the multi-sig wallet to approve sort of a monthly payments, which we have seen with multiple DAOs within the Cardano ecosystem and outside. But yeah, we want to think of it as the financial infrastructure for the new RWA lending and borrowing. So everybody's used to borrowing USDA or USDC against Bitcoin, or borrowing USDC against Ethereum. But how about borrowing against carbon credits? How about borrowing against warehouse receipts? So we're seeing the RWA craze, and I think FusionFi Core can,
deliver an easy to use infrastructure for you to build, the dream product, the next big product. Yeah.
Yeah, or just borrowing against any asset that's quantifiable, right? So we're seeing some global interest now in borrowing against tokens or illiquid tokens, right? That you can't unlock or can't liquidate. So they're starting. The reason why we thought of Fusion Fire Core and why we went for it is we foresaw the volatility in the markets today. The days of 10, 20, 30x, while may still exist, but they're not quite as common as they used to be 10, 15 years ago. And so what most folks are looking for now is yield, right? Stable yield that would allow them to have some sort of liquidity without their assets being locked, right? And these are things we can do leveraging Fusion 5 Core. You can structure things in that way. And this can happen across a variety of industries, right? So for instance, we're talking to a private equity group that's building a fuel processing plant in the West Coast of the United States. And raising money in private equity is very challenging right now. And so we're working with them on carving out an allocation for DeFi, whereby these early investors through this DeFi pool would receive a yield on taking that risk, right? So we're leveraging a piece of Fusion 5 for that. So that's one example of a traditional industry. Another example is a lot of people sit on tokens that they can't unlock because their vesting period is, it's not as matured yet. So we're creating mechanisms to enable people to allow us to work with a regulated custodian to hold these tokens, and in return, give them a cash injection, not equal to, but equivalent to the risk profiles we've put in place, sometimes 30%, sometimes 50%, and to create that liquidity and the flow of money, right? Money just sitting in a pot doesn't do anything, but when we start creating these rails to enable the movement of capital, that creates, buy and sell, it creates volume, and it just spins the wheel like an economy, right? You buy a car, you put gas, you change your tires, everybody wins, right? And this is what we're trying to do with Fusion 5 Core, right? We're trying to build the pillar for an economy within Cardano that would enable this increase in volume traded and flow, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. Well, definitely, gentlemen, I really do appreciate the in-depth view. I definitely want to put this out to the community here. If you guys have questions or you may want to get involved, please let us know. Drop us a comment, give us a like and a follow as well for get more content like this. But any questions you have, please let us know. We can circle back with the Fusion 5 team and get you that response, or we can even get them back here on the cast once again. And we'll catch you guys the next time. Thanks so much, Ahmed and Adit.
Thanks for having us,
Thanks.
Tex.
Much
Appreciate
appreciated.
it. Yeah.
Thank you.